I mean, we talked about how like more rolling isn't necessarily the answer to get better. And I think one point I use to illustrate this a lot with my athletes is the speed bag. You ever seen one of those hanging in the dusty corner of the gym where nobody ever goes, and maybe there's one guy who knows how to use it and nobody else really knows what's going on there, and people go over, paw at it a little bit, it flies all over the place, and they give up because they're not good right away. Or you could spend 10 hours in a row just hammering on the thing, and you wouldn't be any better at hour number 10 as you are at hour number 1, right? But if you spread that out 10 minutes a day for 3 months, which if I did the math right is about 100 hours, 10 hours, sorry, you would look like a pro. You'd look better than Rocky and the Rocky movies on the speed bag at month 3 if you did it that way.
Yeah. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's really what any professor or instructor wants to see is consistency rather than intensity, right? You know, it's silly to think that if you develop a skill very fast and very sharp, that it's going to be as quality as someone who takes their time and is always pushing the needle up, always just a little bit, little by little, brick by brick, rather than, you know, laying down 3 rows of brick and then waiting 2 more months and the weather has come and eroded the top layer of bricks. So you have to take the bricks off and then put 3 more on, you know, whereas the person who's consistent now has 5, 6, 7 layers of quality bricks that won't get eroded, right? That's that idea of just consistency in training. But if we want to talk about periodization, you know, it's important to understand all of these different ideas with periodization. If you're a beginner in the weight room, the recovery costs of each session are actually not that great because you're a novice. It's very hard to impose a lot of physiological stress when you're not physiologically stressing that hard. Your body physically can't handle it. But having said that, if you focus on trying to fatigue yourself, that's the whole thing, is like fatigue. That's what we're looking for. It's a controlled version of fatigue, so that when we recover, we have adapted, and now we can be better. Now, the issue is if you go to the gym and you train very, 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 very hard, and now you're too fatigued, and now you can't train until next Monday, right? When the guy next to you is, you know, he trains what he does enough, then he's able to recover, and now he can train Tuesday, Wednesday. You know, he can train every day. There is no guideline for me to explain to everyone what that level is. It's really a kind of a feeling out type of thing. But I can always say that less is more in the beginning.
Right.
It's like abstaining from doing as much as you can early on so that you have more room to grow later on. It's an incredibly... Yeah. See, this is the fallacy of hard work. And people are going to love this. People misunderstand hard work for what it really is. So I always equate this to try unracking a maximum back squat and tell me that you're not working hard, right? Just unrack the heaviest back squat you've ever done, unrack it, and then just step out from it and tell me if you're not working hard, right? Most people work hard when they're working. It's not about hard work, it's about smart work. And understanding that longevity and your abstaining from the expedient pleasure of lifting the most in the gym because that's what you're good at, the person that can abstain from that has much more room to grow. So it's understanding that maybe the minimum effective dose is actually the best, which people hate to hear.
Yeah, right? Man.
It's hard work.
One thing I get.
If there's more that you can do it. If, you know, get into the gym, do it this time. You know, that's not always the right move.
So many people are absolutely puzzled when they ask me, what is the training regimen of a professional fighter? And I explain it to them. and they're shocked that it's not more than it is. Essentially, at least the way I train my athletes and many other coaches do, is 2 sessions a day. One session that's either 90 minutes to 2 hours long of technique and sparring, and one session that's about 90 minutes to 2 hours long of strength and conditioning. And they're shocked. It's not like 10 hours a day of sparring, 10 hours a day of just doing constant drilling and technique. And again, there's a point of diminishing returns to that. I mean,
yes. So like I was saying, is that's not how the human body works. It's not, you don't just put training into it and then get your outcome that you want. There is a point of diminishing returns. There is a tipping point to where the more you put in, the actual less you get out. So
yeah,
this is, again, the Soviets, they talked about variable training. We know about the principle of overload. You do more so that your body adapts, and then you get stronger, so that more work that you do actually feels a lot easier. And this can be said in jiu-jitsu, your ability, maybe you roll 2 rounds today, next month, or, next week you roll 3 rounds, and the week after that you roll 4 or 5. But that doesn't mean by the 15th week, you're going to be doing 15 rounds as hard as you can. Right? It's as simple as that. The body doesn't work like that. And what's funny is people love to think of the body working like that. We love to think of these patterns as, well, I improved a lot, Ramsey, when I did 5x5 back squats twice a week. And now I'm with you as my strength and conditioning coach, and I'm not improving as much as I did when I started back squatting. Right? So people will, they have this cognitive dissonance. And this is a term as a coach that, boy, you need to be familiar with. Cognitive dissonance, the reality of their situation and the reality that they've made up in their head and these athletes' heads, right? That is definitely, and this is one of those things exactly like that. Like your inability to understand that you are not the same person that you were back then is what's making you cognitively dissonant. You're so, and it happens continually. So if to kind of go back,
and in so many different ways too, like with
that's
fighters,
just one example.
Fighters, I say it a lot. They're selfish people because they have to be. If it's a selfish lifestyle to be a fighter. You've got to be 100% invested in yourself. But yeah, it leads to some problems in gyms. Like a guy will leave his previous coach because he lost a fight. He'll come into my gym and say, "Let's see what you have to offer." He'll train with me for like a week, and then he'll have a fight. I'll be like, "Dude, it's not how it works. We gotta put in a full training camp and actually prepare for this." He'll lose that fight he spent 7 days training for. Blame it on the coach, and then move on. Try to find someone else who will magically make him better. But yeah, man.
Yeah,
athletes are funny that way.
That's that psychology, though, and that person will never really be successful. And I hate to say it, they won't with that psychology unless they change the way that they think. A lot of people actually need to train themselves. I know that sounds crazy. Yes. A lot of people need to just do their own training, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But the problem is when you reach your hands out to a professor or an instructor, you are creating bad habits, and you're not taking it upon yourself to improve. But as far as periodizing and understanding periods, it's more about understanding your recovery. If you're a beginner weightlifter, it's likely that you'll be able to recover pretty fast. And all you can do is try to do more than you did before, but then understand that there's a limit to that. It is absolutely impossible for me to periodize for everyone who's sitting there listening right now, but they need to understand certain principles so that they can grasp it further. So I work for Juggernaut Training Systems,
which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah, and it's cool too because Chad, he does the same thing that I do. He's taught by some of the best in the world, and he teaches them. He does that exchange with them. And that's what I do with these guys. They teach me, these are some of the best in the world at grappling, at no-gi grappling, and even in the gi, Rodrigo. They're some of the best in the world, and I teach them about weightlifting. It's a tremendous exchange. And so I actually took that from Chad. I don't have to pay a membership for jiu-jitsu because they just come in and train with me. And I love training them, and I love having them at the gym. But Chad does the same thing down in Gracie Baja in Northridge in Orange County. And Chad has developed systems for training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically in the weight room. So there is actually a free ebook on JuggernautTrainingSystems.com. I'm sorry to plug that, but that will actually lay out the fundamentals of strength training, not just for BJJ practitioners. I would say a lot of this stuff just carries over directly to mixed martial arts. So another book as well, and this is a lot of these terms that I've just said, you guys are going to hear and read again if you go and check out Juggernaut. And that is the scientific principles of strength training. So what that will do is it will lay out all of the principles that you need to understand, and you need to feel them, right? Just like the way that this sort of can come out of me and I can just talk about it, right? That helps me develop a program. It literally helps me write down numbers that people need to lift because I understand these principles. If we do not have the same principles, right, of strength training, which these are all theories, if we don't have that understanding, we cannot speak the same language. So that's what I would say for anyone who wants to really look at their training and really organize it in a way that will allow them to improve. You must understand the principles of strength training. You must, because you cannot, that's the fundamentals of the language before getting into the language. And so that also can be found on the Juggernaut website as well. So those are two things that I would never, and this is crazy too. I was promoting these things before I was a coach for Juggernaut. Like, I want to be crystal clear. Yeah. Like, that book, The Scientific Principles of Strength Training, that is the only book that I point people to.
Yeah, and by all means, please don't apologize for plugging Juggernaut Training Systems. It's one of my favorite things on the internet. I absolutely love what they offer.
Yeah.
And for anybody watching, go subscribe to Juggernaut Training Systems. Go subscribe to Zack Telander. Amazing information, amazing videos, man.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and it's really what the martial arts community is missing, is essentially shaking hands with the strength training community and becoming part of the same community.
Yeah. I saw a bunch of comments of people who were actually like alongside you in this idea that in the martial arts community, people they've grown to hate strong people, because we have people who are, we're teaching people self-defense, and, you can be 135 pounds and you can submit a big guy who normally would beat the shit out of you. Right. Yeah. Well, what happens when that big guy beats the shit out of you anyways? Exactly, what are you just going to keep getting your technique better? No, you're going to keep, I think we've been sold it. One guys in your comment section brought up a bunch of movies where you see the weaker person trains really hard.
Popular movie trope.
Yes, it's an incredibly popular movie trope, and people want to believe in that into real life. It does happen in real life quite a bit, but I'm sorry to say there are things that are just story, and then there's reality. So.
Yeah, the truth is, if you want to beat a guy who is a better athlete, you have to work really, really hard at it. And you're probably not going to get out of that fight unscathed. Like, I mentioned before, my student who is this 130 kilo strong man who is just enormous and tremendously powerful. And when I was finally able to get strong enough, not technical enough, but strong enough to use my technique to submit him in a roll, man, I felt like I'd just been trampled by a herd of buffalo or something like that. It was a tremendous amount of work. And I remember after that, he got up and he said, "No way, no way." And like some gears changed in his mind, and there was this level of respect that wasn't there before. He was like, "You have something to teach me." And I was like, I think I'm the one learning more in this exchange, actually.
Yeah, wow. That's a very interesting concept, that you are the one learning and you're the one getting better as an instructor. He's the one that jumps up and his eyes are lit up.
Yeah, man, that big strong dude training with me for 8 years, that was such an incredibly educational experience for me as a martial artist, man. That opened my eyes so much to the necessity, the absolute necessity for becoming a better athlete. Like, one thing I always tell people when they ask, like, what's the most important thing for fighting? And I would break it down to 3 basic things: aggression, athleticism, and technique. In no particular order. They're all very important. If you're not aggressive enough, you're going to get stopped.
That's so funny. That's basically the same triad. So aggression would be something that falls into psychology, technique falls into specificity, and then athleticism would come into physiology. For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. That's why I love that you brought that up, man. Those points. It's brilliant. It's brilliant how essentially we're speaking the same language coming from different disciplines. But if you think about it, if you stop and think about it, all these physical disciplines are just expressing what the human body is able to do. So divorcing strength training, divorcing athleticism from technique is silly. I always tell people technique it's nothing more than an efficient application of strength and power. It's not a lack of strength and power.
Of course. Like, it's not, technique is not difficult. Like, that's the thing is, if what's the best way to choke someone with your legs? Well, here's a technique that's called the triangle, right? That's a technique of just saying, I want to squash this person's carotid arteries. Like, it's the brute idea of saying, I want to submit this person with my legs from kind of like a closed guard position, right? Here's a technique that would allow you to use your bigger, stronger leg muscles than simply just grabbing their throat.
Right.
That's as simple as it gets. This is a technique, and everyone has stronger legs than they have arms, so let's apply that.
I love triangle chokes. It's one of my favorite techniques. And
dude, you're a long guy, so am I. I like triangles.
Dude, you're going to be a killer with triangle chokes. One of these days, man. You're going to be like the next Neil Melanson. That's a guy you should look up. He's a big, strong, long, lanky dude who is just amazing at triangle chokes. Actually wrote the book on triangle chokes. Shout out to Neil Melanson, author of Mastering Triangle Chokes. We talked a lot about recovery as part of periodization. And people often throw out the term like active recovery, and it's something I say as well a lot, which could be as simple as, go on a walk or something like that, as opposed to lifting heavy on that particular day. But so
here's an interesting concept. The line of active recovery and actually training is a very blurry one. And so what people need to understand, again, this is the principle that we talk about: stimulus, recovery, adaptation. So if your stimulus is something, what are the recovery costs? And how hard are you able to go while you're recovering? So if you think about stimulus, recovery, adaptation, there's an actual curvature of human performance and your ability to do what it is you want. While you're being stimulated, let's say there's an upward arc in performance. There's an upward arc in trajectory. Again, the deadlift or the back squat, you have 5 sets of 3. Across that workout, that arc is going up. Say you finish the 5 sets of 3. You begin your recovery process. Now that arc comes back to baseline. So it started at a baseline, recovery, understanding of physiology and performance. We went up in our stimulus. Now we're back to baseline, and now we're actually going to go below baseline. So actually the next day you might be weaker than you were the original day. Okay. It might be 3 days and you might be much weaker, right? Then you're going to recover and your arc is now going to be back at baseline because it was just below baseline. And then it's actually going to get higher than it was before. And that stimulus recovery adaptation curve keeps going up, up and up and up and up and up, right? But what is that recovery cost? Well, I don't know. If I pull a maximum deadlift on day 1, on day 2, I will not be able to pull a maximum deadlift. I am weaker than I was on day 1, right? However, a week later, I'm stronger than I was in day 1. That is our recovery window. It's as simple as that. So as much as you want to pack into that recovery window, go ahead and do it. But make sure that you're able to recover and lift better than you did before. So this is something there's a common misunderstanding of training frequency that people don't quite understand. And it's not about frequency, it's about intensity. I personally, I train every single day, every single year. And guess what? Today's training, Ramsey, is going to be some bodybuilding, some bicep curls, some shoulder raises, and
interesting. Some
maybe
curls
a light
for the girls. All right.
Yeah, and maybe a light freaking jog. That's my training. What do you think the stimulus recovery adaptation for that session is? Nothing. I'll be fine the next day. But that's training. Yeah. Right? So people don't understand. There's a difference in levels of training. I train every goddamn day because I love training. I'm sorry, I love it. But that doesn't mean that I do 9 rounds, 9 to 15 rounds every day of rolling. It doesn't mean that I do, maximum deadlifts every day on top of that. It just means that I'm doing something.
Every day does not need to be a marathon.
So the idea of active recovery is stupid. It's a silly one. You're just training, but it's just less intense. So just it's fun. My
do
training
something every day to get stronger, and that's going to be variable depending on the day, right?
So when you walk, your heart rate goes up from resting. That's training. Like your body adapts to that. It might not adapt to it in a certain light, but it is stimulus regardless. And your recovery from that stimulus is within the hour. The stimulus of walking around the block, your heart rate goes up, you might sweat a little bit, and then you sit down on the couch. Within the hour, you're ready to go again. Okay? That's the lowest form of stimulus, but that's a workout. That's training nonetheless. There's differing levels, and I think people need to understand that. That way they can understand, they can understand how to recover. They can understand how often they should train. How many times do you get asked the question, hey, Ramsey, how many times should I train a week?
Oh, so many times. Every time I have a new student come, constantly over the internet in the comments section, constantly I'm asked that question.
Yeah. So then you just say, it depends.
Yeah.
And they go, it depends on what? Well, what's your schedule like? How often have you been training before? All this different stuff. Then they realize that Ramsey doesn't know how to answer this question any better than I do. Right?
Yeah.
And then they realize, wow, maybe I should kind of do more shit myself instead of ask people, I'm not getting mad at the people who are asking questions. It's fair. It's understood.
Yeah, questions are important. Right? It's very important to take the initiative to come up with your own questions.
I take issues with questions when the person themselves knows they can answer it themselves. Because the first thing you're going to do, Ramsey, when someone asks you a question is you're going to ask them a question right back. Because you don't know them. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they are.
Exactly. And I'm constantly asked by folks on the internet, should I train in Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu? And I'm like, well, which one do you like? I mean, do you like striking? Do you like grappling? What are your goals in life? Do you want to be a pro fighter, or is this for fun and recreation?
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm not kidding. I get that question on a daily basis.
It stems from, this is I call it syllabus culture. So you show up to to your day, if you know your first day of class at university, and you have your syllabus is given to you, and that's basically an outline of the semester's curriculum. The professor says, be here on this day. This is your final. Know this, this, and this, and you'll get an A+. Kids pack up their shit and leave. There it is. I know exactly what it takes to be successful because my teacher told me exactly what I needed to do. Very rarely do we see that in the real world, ever.
Yeah.
Right? You're sure as hell not going to see it in mixed martial arts. There is no.
Absolutely not.
There is no.
There are just too many variables from the training itself to the fight itself. Too many variables. You can come up with the greatest game plan ever, but it's going to have to adapt every moment of the fight.
One definitive way, if someone says, "How do I make it to the UFC?" If I was going to make a syllabus for that, hey guys, welcome to Zach's Making It to the UFC 101. I can guarantee you a trip to the UFC at the end of this class. The only thing I would say is win every fight. Win every fight you fucking enter. There you go.
Exactly, man. There you go.
The amount of time it takes, and then I said, and the amount of time it takes might be 1 to 10 years. Just never fucking lose. And then they're going to say, well, then how do I do that? Well, then you go, oh, now you're asking the right questions. You know, there's a million different answers to that. But it's like, that's it. That's the only thing we can think about. This is just, you know, people are always going to reach out to you so that you can consider them. And that's fine. People need help. They need to be talked through things. But what they don't realize, it's themselves who are helping themselves through it.
Yes. Oh man, that is so important. One of the most improved athletes I ever trained. He wasn't even an athlete. He was a businessman. This dude was an investment banker, a very successful investment banker, and probably the busiest guy I've ever known in my life. Had very little personal time, but he took the initiative to train himself because he had to. He had very limited time to train with me. He was very interested in the sport of boxing. He asked me for a few simple cues. One thing I told him to do was shadow box every day, and he said, I will do that. And after a week of not seeing him, he came back, and I said, how'd it go? Did you shadow box every day? I said, yes, I did, but the flight attendant stared at me funny as I was doing it in the aisles on the plane from one business trip to another, because that's the only time I had to do it. And I was like, good job, man. Good job.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But that dude improved. He learned how to box. That dude learned how to box. Not everybody does. People say they want to be fighters. People say they want to be an athlete. But not everybody does it, man. Not everybody does the work. And that work it's based entirely on personal initiative. If you don't want it, you won't make it, man.
Yep. 100%.
The relationship between strength, athleticism, and technique. I was teaching a class last night, and it was a group class, a public class, with a bunch of. What was that sound? It sounded like a UFO taking off.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's my chair.
Oh, no worries. So I'm teaching this class with a bunch of hobbyists, basically, and they're struggling. They're struggling with some fundamentals, and I asked them pretty straightforward. How many of you can squat your body weight on your shoulders? You know, with a barbell loaded up with just your body weight. One hand goes up out of like 20 guys there. How many of you can deadlift your body weight? One hand goes up out of like 20 guys. How many of you can do a single pull-up? Maybe two hands go up out of 20. And I'm like, we need to fix this. They're achievable goals, right?
Yes.
I'm not asking you to become a world-class elite or even advanced or even intermediate lifter, right? I'm asking you to do something that is achievable for you. And one of the lessons that I learned from training with this enormously strong athletic dude that I've been telling you about, who just crushed me when I first met him, was that you don't have to be stronger than your opponent, but it sure does help if you're stronger than his weight. So one of the goals I made was to be able to get to the point where I could easily deadlift and squat his weight. And when I got to that point, man, imposing my will via technique got so much easier.
Yes. Yes.
So there's obviously a point of diminishing returns. Like you obviously don't have to be as strong as, say, the world's strongest man to beat a big strong guy, but and there are so many many variables here.
Because what it takes to be stronger at that level is just too much.
Yeah.
If you have a 600-pound back squat, in order to back squat 610 pounds, it's really hard on your body, right? But if you have a 135-pound back squat and you want to back squat 225, it's not that hard on your body at all. In fact, you don't even have to change anything. You don't even have to worry about recovery. You don't have to worry about anything like that. Just get to the gym and start squatting, and it'll happen. So that what I like about what you were saying is those are achievable, but what you really meant was those are almost in, if you go to the gym, they are innate happenings. They will happen.
Yeah.
If you have the right form when you do it and you just do it enough, those are things that are very low barriers, you know, when we talk about what the elite are doing. So get in the gym and do it, you know?
Yes.
Working towards getting a pull-up, body weight deadlift, body weight back squat, like those are very simple things. You just have to put in some time.
Indeed. Man, I love the way you phrase that. It's and again, I got some looks, man, when I said that. Be able to deadlift and squat your weight and be able to do pull-ups. They looked at me like I was evil, like, how could you ask me to do this horrible thing? How can you ask me to do something so difficult? But you're absolutely right. Those are things that will happen if you just get out there and train.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes.
You don't have to write up some crazy schedule, you know, to be squat 500 or whatever.
No.
I suppose the moral of the story right here is get out there and train, guys.
Yeah.
The thing I always say at the end of every one of my videos. And one thing I love about your videos is, you know, that catchphrase, that your tagline at the end of every one of them: no excuses, just train.
Improve. Just improve.
Yes, just improve. Just improve.
Yes.
Exactly. Sorry, I butchered your catchphrase. I'm mixing it up with my own. But they are related. They are related. I love it.
Yes. So it's the idea that no matter what, wherever you are, it is actually, there is always something you can do better. That doesn't mean you're going to do it good. That doesn't mean you're going to do it great. It doesn't even it doesn't mean that you will be in the top or bottom 10 percentile of, you know, performance, but you can be better. So there's no, you know, so it doesn't matter. Like, nothing else matters. Just be better. Don't be good. Don't be great. Don't shoot for the stars. I fucking hate that. I personally, I don't like even really saying the word goals. I don't like people having big dreams. For me, it's like, when you have certain things in place that are so future bound, you have now expectations of the future. Why have any expectations if you can't even do whatever it is correctly, right? Have a higher standard and understand that if you can get better, focus on that little thing. I'm not focusing on if my back squat is 225 pounds, I'm not focusing on a 600-pound back squat. I'm focusing on a 230-pound back squat. And then when I get 230, awesome, I'm focusing on 235, and I'm focusing on 240, 245. And if somebody wants to call me a coward for not dreaming big, that's fine. They'll just watch me gain strength. They'll watch me get stronger. You know, I'm sick and tired of seeing people who expect and they want the most, because honest to God, I've had hundreds of people say they want to do something and I know they're not going to do it. When you say I want, the moment you say I want, it's like something in your brain says that you've already had it, so you give up, or the brain craves you saying that. They crave you uttering the words of a fantasy that you want to do. It's right. I come up to you and I say, Ramsey, I want to be in the UFC. Right?
I've heard those words many times.
That makes me feel good. But it means nothing. And it will never mean anything, ever. Never, never, never. Right? But if I said, Ramsey, I'm not very good at this. I just want to be able to get better and better and better and better every day. That's all. I don't care. I just want to be able to get better. Someone who can get better and better for 20 years straight, you're damn right they're going to be elite. It's right. Like it has to happen. Doesn't matter what your skill level is currently. Doesn't matter where you are when you're 3 years in, where you are. If you're going upward, 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 and you never really have those big downturns, you can be elite. There's no question about it. That's just math. You know, you can only go so high. It's just math. If you just keep getting better, well, you're going to be at the top at some point.
Indeed, man. And I got a slightly unrelated question to you, but Chad Wesley Smith, have you had a chance to roll with him?
No, I haven't. And I'm going out to California next week. USA Weightlifting Nationals has been moved to online, obviously for pandemic reasons. Yeah. So I will be flying out to Chad's house in California, and we're going to, and I have 4 lifters. Yeah. And there's a couple who are already out there who are Juggernaut lifters. So we're going to have a kind of an online training session where we can all support each other, and we're going to do content and stuff there. But I made sure with Chad, I'm like, listen, man, I'm going to go out there. We need to train. Please figure this out. I want to roll. And he's like, nah, we got it. We'll get you. So yes, I will be rolling with Chad Wesley Smith, and I will report how it goes.
Oh man, fantastic. I hope you make a video of it. I would love to see that. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that room.
Yeah, he just plays top all the time, smashes, and uses his body weight. So, man. So it'll be nice to use my close guard, see what happens. But
when I heard that Chad was doing jiu-jitsu and that he started competing in tournaments, I started thinking, man, if he does open weight tournaments, I can just imagine the looks on faces of the little guys on the opposite end of the bracket. Oh man,
yeah, scary man. Yeah, his first year as a blue belt. I mean, he got gold or no, he was 3rd place at Pan Am's. So blue belt Pan Am's.
Yeah, man.
So
again, a lot of martial artists like to poo-poo the idea of the strong guy competing in a martial art, because I think it's intimidating. It's intimidating to people who aren't strong.
Here's the thing: this is how silly do people think this? People live in movie tropes. So yeah, I'm strong, right? So relative to my sport and where I'm at, I'm actually not strong. But when I walk into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, I am strong comparatively to most of the people, right? I walk in there.
One comment I loved on your video, it just made me laugh. Somebody said something like, when I watch Zack's weightlifting videos, he looks like an average sized guy, but in this one, he's like a giant compared to these jiu-jitsu guys.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. When I walk into jiu-jitsu, I say, I am an absolute neophyte. I want to get better at jiu-jitsu. I don't say, oh yeah, now it's time for me to use my strength to beat down these nerds. Do they think this is a fucking 80s movie? I mean, honest to God, people are living in a fantasy land as if, dude, most people that walk into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym don't say, now it's time for me to be stronger and use my bodybuilding muscles. Like, no one does that. You know?
Yeah, man.
the likelihood that you're going to come in and dominate as a bodybuilder who's never done jiu-jitsu before, it's the same likelihood as of someone who's, learning how to ride a unicycle because you've ridden a bike before. It's just not likely. And you'd be insane to think that it is. I'm sorry.
There are some insane people out there, but yeah, exactly.
My mindset has never been that. And I actually would challenge that most people's mindsets are, but I guess it does happen. There are tough guys that come into the gym and they need to be taught a lesson. But for the most part, it's like people have an understanding. It's like, I'm learning something new here. I'm not just going to use my strength so I don't have to worry about technique. That's just ridiculous.
I've got to say, though, I absolutely love coaching athletes who come from other sports. Like here in China, I've coached a lot of rugby players. Like rugby players, I find gravitate toward the sport of mixed martial arts, grappling especially, really, really well. And it's not so much the technique. I mean, there is some crossover between rugby tackles and double leg takedowns, but there's something about the mental toughness, the psychology, like you were saying, which has so much crossover. And even some athletes, like there was a girl who played tennis. She was a high-level tennis player, not professional, but high-level tennis player. Ended up being really good at jiu-jitsu after about 3 months of practice. Much more so than the average person. So I would strongly encourage anybody who is athletic, who is an athlete in any other discipline to cross-train in jiu-jitsu or get into a martial art. But equally, I would advise anyone in martial arts, any martial art, every martial art, to get into other aspects of physical culture, especially strength training. Yeah. Anything that makes you a better athlete makes you a better fighter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Zack, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Once again, thanks to Zack Telander for coming out and having this discussion with us today. Check him out again on YouTube, Instagram. Tell us where we can find you on the internet, Zack.
Yeah, that's it. YouTube, search my name, Zack Telander. Instagram, you can search my name as well, but coach_ZT. And then if you want to learn weightlifting, you can go to my Patreon, patreon.com/Zack Telander, and it's just $1 a month for all of my weightlifting programming. It's very cheap, and it helps me out. So that's it.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Zack, and thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.